South Africa continues to struggle with depressed business confidence levels. The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, in its Business Confidence Index, says that the BCI index has declined 1.3 index points to 92 index points in July. This is the second lowest level of the index since January 2019. SACCI says the real economic activity business climate remained challenging. They, however, say the financial conditions pertaining to the business climate improved due to the external factors like higher commodity prices and a lower repo rate. Merchandise import and export volumes made negative contributions to the business climate. SACCI says the recently released unemployment figures in the second quarter are the most telling indicator of the subdued performance of the South African economy. The official unemployment rate stands at 29%, the highest in 11 years. SACCI says the high level of optimism that existed immediately after the election of President Ramaphosa is being affected by indications that the ruling party is divided on policy, political and factional lines. It says these divisions have a direct impact in government's efficiency and effectiveness in implementing its policies and managing the fiscus. The organisation says the poor financial position of state-owned enterprises and municipalities is also a huge cause for concern. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in studio by Richard Downing. He's an economist at SACCI. Thanks very much, Richard, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Good stuff. So what are I've highlighted quite a lot of them in the introduction there, but what do you see as the major headwinds to business confidence in the country?
Well, I think, we look at small issues now, month on month and year on year and that type of thing that you've highlighted now. But I think one of the major problem areas actually that we must face is actually structural issues to put the economy in a different direction and therefore enhance business confidence and especially investor confidence. It's not just tinkering here and tinkering there. I think there's more fundamental issues to be addressed. And we know about Eskom, which is quite an energy supply utility, which is very important to the South African economy. And it's got financial problems, it's got sort of delivery problems to some extent. And there's a lot of SOEs also that have a problem.
You talk about tinkering here, tinkering there. It's something that we've been doing for a long time, isn't it? And now we have the ratings agencies coming out strongly to warn us. We have the leader of Nedbank coming out to say we're really running out of time. Busa also coming out to say, guys, we're running out of time, especially on the fiscal front. Can we afford to continue with the tinkering?
I don't think so. I think we've got to address these issues, and it's urgent and it's serious. And as you've mentioned, there's a lot of exogenous factor inhibiting sort of this movements that I think the government is aware of that. So some people in government, but there's unfortunately some people who don't actually realize the seriousness of the situation yet. And in the end, one will have to go to, you'll be forced to actually get outside assistance to get your economy on track again, and that might not be nice because they'll actually have conditional aid given to you, but that is very strict, and you can't actually take another route. So rather do it yourself and get your own house in order. We know also the world economy is not doing that well, and it's actually subdued at some extent at the moment. Trade wars going on. Fortunately, commodity prices lifted a bit, and we've mentioned this in terms of the confidence, but I think that's not enough. One should base your economy more. You should more differentiate your economy in terms of activity, and especially in terms of the unemployment situation and the fourth industrial revolution, which is major challenges,
yes,
which goes much deeper. It goes into your education levels and that type of thing. And I think we must really pay attention to that type of issues before we can really think about.
Are you satisfied with the recent pronouncements that government has been making around how it's going to be addressing better education?
Well, I think the best thing that we've heard since actually the president in 2018 took over is actually, and especially the Minister of Finance, indicating, the problem areas. And not be ashamed to name them. I think that is an important issue. Once you've already realized what is wrong, then you can work on something. But once you live in cuckoo's world, you'll never address the issues that is really important. And I think that is where we must go now. It is a very serious situation. And we say the unemployment figure that we saw is a manifestation of how serious this thing is. I mean, a lot of youths don't have a sort of view in terms of the future. And that type of thing, and that brings us back to service delivery. And I think SACCI, to some extent, in the press release, made a lot of issues about, management of
municipalities.
Municipalities,
Yeah.
actually all over the show in terms of the public sector. And I think that is very important to get our house in order and to make sure, of course, corruption doesn't take place, that is, a maladministration is out of the way, and then only we can go there. But I must just make the point, we must just remember it took quite a number of years to get where we are at the moment. This index in 2017 actually went below 90, which is the same sort of levels we saw in the mid-80s under sanctions. So that actually was already a sort of an indication that we're not where we want to be. And therefore, I think this index indicates to us, there's serious need for movement on and action and implementation of policy, which SACCI also might make in its press release.
Before I let you go, Richard, electricity. Businesses have been complaining about the electricity hikes. To what extent is that affecting their viability and even the job situation?
Well, I don't think it only affects business viability and profitability and that type of thing. It's also in terms, of inflation that comes through to the ordinary consumer. In the end, the Reserve Bank has to fend all these sort of challenges in terms of its monetary policy, which is not fair to some extent, and have been critical on the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is the only man standing type of thing, at the moment, and I think we congratulate the Reserve Bank in actually viewing the situation as it is and trying to remedy the situation to some extent. But you can't leave it all to the Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
I think you can't have major sort of wage increases, say, well above inflation, and then expect the Reserve Bank to contain inflation.
We're not getting that this year.
That type of inconsistencies, in policy also is a very important issue that must be addressed.
All right then, Richard, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for
Thanks
your
a
time,
lot.
sir. That was Richard Downing. He's an economist at the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Ratings agency Moody's has warned Eskom will need external support to deal with its worsening financial position. Government is spending billions of rand to help Eskom meet its debt obligations. Analysts say Eskom should find an equity partner to raise funding. Moody's says a successful turnaround of the power utility will require significant external support, as evidenced by the recent increase in government transfers. Eskom's debt has jumped to 441 billion rand. Government's efforts to support Eskom are being hampered by low economic growth and dwindling state revenues. Moody's has flagged Eskom's debt as one of the major risks weighing on government's fiscus. Having a strong support system can be the difference between life and death for victims